Heat sits on Makola Market like a heavy cloth. Amma stands behind a low table of wrapped tomatoes, a blue plastic bowl at her feet for coins. The sun smells like fried plantain and spilled diesel. A small glass bottle catches her eye first, dark oil inside, cap scarred, a red thread tied around its neck. It sits on a wooden crate near an old man who leans on a walking stick and coughs so hard his head jerks back. The bottle is the size of a thumb and looks fragile. The thread is frayed. A motorcycle whines past, horns answer, and Amma makes a quick choice with money trembling in her hand. She knows the market well. She knows Baba Kofi by the way he keeps his shawl over his shoulders even in heat. Today his breath is short and wet. He tells her between coughs that the oil is for his chest, that the healer will not give him more until his debt is cleared. The man at the stall wants his coins. The choice is small and sharp. Keep the money for tomorrow's tomato seed or hand it out and go hungry tonight. Amma's fingers find the coin, clink it into the seller's hand, then into Baba Kofi's. The oil bottle smells faint of ginger and smoke when she lifts it closer. That smell hits her like a sharp pepper. She feels the market tilt and decides to protect the old man. When she gives the bottle to Baba Kofi, the crowd moves around them like slow water. He grips her small wrist, squeezes, and his eyes are bright with surprise. "May your hands never be empty," he whispers, and his voice is thin as paper. Nearby, a child named Nee laughs at a juggling seller. A woman calls prices for fish, and a hawker sells cold water in torn sachets. Amma smiles but feels the coin honey in her pocket look lighter already. The red thread on the bottle taps her palm like a small bell. She ties the coin sack tight and walks back to her tomatoes with a different air, less hunger, more worry. The first obstacle comes as soon as she turns. Rain comes without warning, not the fine sprinkle of market rain that makes the ground sweet, but a hard sheet that knocks dust into faces and sends plastic tarps flapping like trapped birds. Her tomatoes bob in the plastic, juice creeping from a split fruit. People scatter under tarps. Amma goes to cover what she can and watches the oil bottle shake on its crate as the rain hammers the market. The seller who owned the bottle is gone. Baba Kofi coughs and presses the bottle to his chest as if it were a map. Amma covers her stall with a tin sheet she borrows from a neighbor and waits for the rain to pass, thinking only of the red thread. The second obstacle touches the pocket again. When the rain stops, a young man with fingers like a spider comes to Amma's stall pretending to choose tomatoes. He takes a handful and tries to run. Amma hears the snap of the plastic bag, the slap of a shoe on ground, and she stands between the man and her table like a small wall. She calls for help. A passerby, Wanjiru, grabs the thief by the wrist, and in the scuffle a coin tin falls and the lid flings open. Coins scatter like small moons. In the push and pull, one of the jars of water tips and spills onto her sack of seeds. She curses softly. The thief got nothing but a bruise. She saved a few coins and lost the seed bag. Her palms sting from the wet and the loss. The oil bottle sits at the edge of the scene, untouched, as if waiting. Conflict climbs when Chief Yaw, the market leader, appears with a paper that flaps in his hand. Fees due, lists to sign, and a very smooth look around his mouth. He says the council wants to pave this row of stalls. The town plans to push vendors away. He speaks about development and how tired officials are of the market's noise. His eyes move to Amma's stall like a man counting future numbers. "We need money for permits," he tells the crowd, the paper rustling like dry leaves. Chief Yaw is not cruel. He is greedy and dressed in a shirt that shows how much that greed can cost. He adds a small voice about a new investor who will bring a road and a clean market. When he says the investor's name, Nana Mensa, the man with the black SUV, the crowd hushes like wind through tall grass. The black SUV is a rumor at first, the sound of a large engine and the shine of a badge in the sun. Nana Mensa is a man whose name sits on radio adverts and on billboards with gold lettering. People whisper that he owns buildings across West Africa. He does not come often to Makola Market, but when he does, his SUV arrives like an omen, shiny, sealed, and slightly wrong at the edges. That night news travels, a photo of the SUV by the market gate, a man in a suit with a face like polished wood. Amma hears the story from a boy who sells roasted ground nuts. Nana Mensa is buying land. He wants the market space to put up a mall. Vendors send a prayer skyward. Amma thinks of Baba Kofi and the oil bottle, and how small help can be when the wind carries a storm. Days pass. Baba Kofi grows thin and does not come to the market every morning. Amma pays for herbs here and there, gives him a wrapper at night, watches him sleep under the old mango tree. She ties the red thread of the bottle into her braids like a promise. The market feels sharper, voices more nervous, tense, tighter. Rumors thicken, a paper plan. A set of signed documents, men from a law firm who will say the land is theirs. Chief Yaw moves through the stalls with papers. His smile gets wider. The second obstacle becomes a threat. Official letters stamped in purple. Then the SUV arrives in truth. It glides into the market at dusk, steel and glass that drinks the light. Two men in dark clothes get out with small leather folders. They stand while vendors fold their bargains, a line of long shadows stretching from their shoes. Nana Mensa himself does not step out at first. The driver opens a door. A man's shadow leans out and the SUV's shine throws a flash into Amma's eyes. For the first time, she feels like the bottle is a secret with a price. The men speak to Chief Yaw, papers change hands, and sackcloth sellers whisper about offers too large to refuse. Amma hears a voice behind her. "We can make it better," says a man with a tie too tight, a voice that smells like perfume. He points at the plans and at pictures of a new market with glass. He talks about progress and jobs. The crowd listens a little. Then an official named Inspector Boateng arrives, his uniform crisp, his stamps heavy. He asks for the papers, his face unreadable. Nana Mensa's men present a sheet with signatures and a deed. Chief Yaw nods and folds his hands like a child who has been given candy. The market holds its breath. The third obstacle is not a thief now. It is a legal paper with a corner that bites. Midway through the conflict, a small twist opens like a second door. Baba Kofi, who had been quiet and thin, coughs more and seems brighter for a day. In his pocket is the glass bottle with the red thread. When he sits on the crate to take tea, his fingers trace a dent in the cap. As he turns the bottle under the light, he reveals a rolled paper tucked inside the red thread. Old, yellow, and thick with the long oil smell. The paper looks like a child's toy but is heavier. He pulls it free with shaking hands, uncurls it slowly, and Amma sees lines of hand-written words and a seal pressed into wax. It is a deed, not small at all. The market land named in the old town records, signed by elders long gone. The twist flips the meaning of the bottle. What was medicine is now evidence. The crowd gathers. Words rush like a river. Baba Kofi squints at the script, reading names he remembers. His brother, a teacher, the old town chief. The seal is cracked in places but clear. Someone in the crowd, Auntie Fatima, who used to work in the town registry, stops. Her hands go to her mouth. She says the script is old, but matches the registry's design before the colonial ink. Auntie Fatima is an unexpected witness who knows the stamp of truth. She wipes her hands on her skirt, calls a young man to fetch her phone, and says, "Bring that to the office. Bring a copy." The deed's existence flips the way people see the market. It is no longer just a pile of stalls and sweat. It is a place carved into paper. Nana Mensa's men grow thin around the edges. Their smiles become thin lines. They ask to see the deed, and Chief Yaw folds himself like a man who is not ready for the ache of what he promised. Inspector Boateng examines the paper with a brow that does not move much. He tells the crowd that the law will have to look at this. The SUV waits outside like a dark sun. The market hums with a new sou and hope laced with fear. For a moment, Amma believes the deed will save them. That belief is a bright small bird that lands on her shoulder and pecks. Then the crisis arrives like a slammed door. In the night, men with gloves and faces hidden like masks creep behind the stalls. Baba Kofi's house is small and made of tin. It sits near the mango tree like a matchbox. They break the door and drag him out. When Amma sees him the next morning, he is being taken by men in plain clothes for questioning. The oil bottle is gone. The paper deed is gone. Someone in the crowd has already cleared a space on the crate where he sat. The red thread is a dark line left behind. Baba Kofi looks small in the back of a dusty pickup, his breath short and frightened. His eyes find Amma and shine like a sudden coin. "Forgive me," he says. "I should have told you more." The market protests, but there are more men than glad voices. Amma faces a choice inside the crisis: chase after Baba Kofi and risk being arrested herself, or protect the crowd and the stall and hope the papers return. She goes to the crate and looks for the bottle without breath. Her fingers find the gums of wood and then the hole where the bottle sat. The town clerk, Auntie Fatima, says someone saw a hand throw something into the gutters near the market gate. Amma runs, her feet slapping the wet earth, heart heavy like a stone. The gutters smell of oil and old fruit. She cannot find the deed. She cannot find the bottle. She finds only a strip of red thread stuck to a drainpipe. The crisis is sharp and painful. The chain that started with kindness has been broken, and the man who carried the proof is taken away. She decides to fight. This is the hard choice: sell the last of her tomatoes and use the money to print flyers and gather witnesses, or hide and save her small shop from further damage. Amma uses her last coins to make copies of the few names she can remember from the old script, names Auntie Fatima whispered that night. She spends the night with a small group of vendors: fish sellers, a shoemaker named Musa, a young craftsman called Kojo, planning a day of truth. They will stand by the crates and shout the names into the market and ask the clerk who never left her office. It is a small army. Their shoes are worn, their voices are loud. The world is heavy, but their steps are certain. The multi-climax begins with spectacle. The market fills as it does when the sun climbs and the town wakes. More people come than usual. Vendors hold banners made from woven mats with paint that says, "Hands off our land," and "Bring back our elder." The black SUV arrives again, but this time the market has prepared itself like a net. Amma stands on a crate with Auntie Fatima beside her, and she speaks into a borrowed microphone. Her voice is not large, but the market hears her, because she speaks with a clear thing: truth. Musicians from the market drum to call the crowd. The sound is like a heart. A live stream begins in a corner. A young man with a phone puts the camera up and says names into the small lens. The city hears the market. Nana Mensah's men step forward with papers to claim the land. They are met with the first unexpected witness: Kojo, the craftsman, who remembers delivering crates to the old town chief and has a receipt in his pocket from when the chief paid him. He holds it up. His hands shake more from fear than age. Musa, the shoemaker, remembers seeing the seal and hammers on a paper delivered to the chief's house, and brings a charcoal sketch of the seal he made long ago back. House he liked shapes. Auntie Fatima speaks into the microphone like a judge. She speaks the registry's history, the old dates. Her voice rings. The crowd grows thick and noisy. The spectacle is a market turned into a courtroom, drums as gavels. Then a child runs from the back of the crowd, Nee, the boy who laughs at jugglers, and he pulls at the SUV's door with the stubbornness only children have. He trips and opens the rear. A white envelope slides out from under the seat and flutters like a small bird into the dust. Everyone freezes. The envelope is not empty. It carries a copy of a newer deed dated after the old one, a paper with a different seal and a name that looks forged in places, the ink smeared. Nee holds it above his head. "See!" he yells. He looks like he has saved a treasure. The men from the SUV go pale an ugly shade. Inspector Boateng steps forward with the envelope, and suddenly his face tells a story of a man who has seen many papers but not this kind of greed. He calls for calm and calls for the town registry. When Auntie Fatima opens the old book at the registry, she finds the old deed that matches Baba Kofi's paper in script and design. The new deed in the envelope is missing a stamp. It is fake. Nana Mensah's men say the papers are in order, but the camera is on, the phone streams the exchange, and the city begins to watch the market through a small, glowing eye. Public shame falls in waves. Nana Mensah, who steps out at last with his coat like a cape, finds himself surrounded not by glossy newspaper pictures but by faces he cannot buy. People shout at him with voices that smell of truth and salt. His mouth shapes words that fall into the air and do not catch. Auntie Fatima speaks the registry's finding. The judge from the town assembly arrives, hears the claims, and calls for men from the ethics commission. The wealthy man's smooth voice breaks it, and are questions about missing stamps and suspicious signatures. He reaches for the envelope that Nee holds, but the boy jumps behind a vendor and shields it like a shield made of small hands. The unexpected witness that seals the scene is not a registrar or a musician. It is a young woman who sells second-hand phones. She holds up her own footage from the day the men brought the newer deed to Chief Yaw. In her video, a hand is shown slipping money into an envelope as Chief Yaw nods. The money is large and the exchange is quick. The camera captures the man's face for barely a second, a man who looks in the video like Nana Mensah's manager. The footage streams and grows in the phone screens of every buyer and seller. Social media wakes. The city hums with the viral light of that footage. Nana Mensah's power sheds like an old coat. He tries to laugh at the crowd, a small bark that fails. His men look at each other with the worried faces of people who now see a trap closing. Inspector Boateng calls for reinforcements from the city when he sees the video. The Ethics Commission takes the call. Chief Yaw's hands are recorded accepting money, and his voice recorded arranging the deal. In the market's sudden clear light, the men who thought themselves invisible are visible, and their power slips. They are stripped of their claim not by a sword, but by 1,000 eyes. There is a painful ending to this act. Baba Kofi is returned, but he is not the same. The men who took him say he must go to the hospital. The market carries him to the clinic where a nurse says his lungs are weary and he must rest. He sits against the white wall and cries like a man who is angry at a world that takes small things from the old. Amma sits beside him and holds his hand while the crowd grows quiet around them. Chief Yaw is taken away to answer questions. Nana Mensah's name splashes across the evening news as a man who has been under investigation for document fraud. He sits in a black SUV a little less shiny, a man thinking of the cost of a lost face. The public reveal is not the only Sila IMAX. There is a smaller quiet company inside it. The market regains its papers and its name. The registry confirms the original deed's priority. The court orders a temporary stay on development while investigations continue. Nana Mensah's investors pull back like birds that sense a storm. The market leaders organize a syndicate of vendors to protect their rights. The small bank will hold funds for repairs. People bring tiles and paint. The market is bruised but alive. In one corner, a group of women stitch a new banner that says, "Makola stays." They hang the banner like a flag. In the weeks after, Amma's stall is not the same. Her tomatoes are fewer and her coin bowl hears only small sounds. Yet she finds herself on committees, small hands folded in the council that will set rules for the vendors and their land. The city gives a small grant to repair the stalls because the cameras showed a heart of people who could not be pushed away. Auntie Fatima is given a small pension for her help with the records. Musa, the shoemaker, gets a contract to mend shoes for the new market team. The ripple starts to fill small holes. 6 months later, sunlight visits Makola Market differently. Lanes are swept, new tin roofs shine, and people move more freely. The mango tree still stands where Baba Kofi rests, now with a small bench beneath it. The glass bottle with the red thread, once lost, sits now inside a wooden box carved by Kojo and placed above the market gate. The box has a small brass plate that reads, "For those who keep our story." People touch the box and leave coins beneath it like a small memory. The bottle is no longer a secret. It is a symbol. Children tie small red threads onto the bottle's box and tell each other the story like a new kind of game. Amos sits by her stall on that morning, her hands tired but steady. Her stall is a little larger, donated funds placed into a small co-op so vendors can borrow for seeds. She sells tomatoes that are bright as the inside of the sun. Baba Kofi sometimes comes to buy a piece of bread. He pats her hand and laughs at the jokes of the market boys. Auntie Fatima rides to the registry sometimes, and a younger clerk sits beside her to learn. The black SUV is a memory seen across the street in a small shop window where a boy points out the glass. Nana Mensah's case goes to court, but the market no longer waits to be saved by men in suits. It is the market that wakes each morning like an animal that has learned to run. In the crowd that gathers for the market's small anniversary, Amma watches as Nee runs to the small box and ties another red thread. She remembers the feel of the bottle's oil on her palm the first day it touched her skin, the coughs she heard, the rain that tried to steal her days. She remembers the hard choice to give coin away, then the harder choice to stand before a man who thought his papers could bow the market. The city seems softer, loud, but kinder. People speak with a new courage. Vendors trade stories and coins and life. The deed sits safe now in a town room under a simple lock. The real registry copy copied 3 times and placed in 3 different hands, Fatima's, the town judge's, and the co-op's. Amma's life is not a tale of sudden riches. She sleeps in the same house beside her mother, Na, whose hands are gentle and used to work. But she wakes differently. The market gives her a place on a committee that teaches young women how to save money. She learns to count and to plan and to speak in small, clear bursts. The children learn the story as they learn to count, and the market grows a new kind of wealth that is not just coins. The oil bottle is no anger medicine, but a lamp in the night, a light that is small and hard to break. The months fold into a rhythm. Amma sells tomatoes, teaches a small class on a shaded crate 2 mornings a week, and hears visits from journalists who ask questions with soft eyes. She talks about choices and about how a thread can tie people together. Baba Kofi teaches young boys to make wooden toys for pennies. The market repairs a small clinic. Inspector Boateng comes to the anniversary and smiles like a man who is warming his face in sun after a heavy rain. The town feels like a story told by elders at the door, and the market tells this one every day. Kindness can start a chain that saves a whole street. Did she do the right thing? Please like, share, and subscribe for more market stories. Bring a friend and come back next week for another true tale from our streets. On Makola Market's anniversary, as banners dry in the late sun and the drums still murmur from a corner, a new figure steps from the shadowed edge of the mango trees, and the crowd parts as if the air itself makes way for a careful wind. She is tall, with a calm eyes and smile kind of seriousness, wearing a modest blouse and a scarf that catches the light like a small, bright flag, and she calls herself Adoma Agyemang, founder of Bright Path Foundation, a billionaire not loud with money, yet loud with courage, the kind who has watched the market from far enough to know its rhythms and close enough to hear its prayers. and when she speaks, the words fall with the certainty of a bench under a storm, that this place will not be knocked down by a glossy investor's paper and a black SUV's hum, but protected by a covenant of people who know each other's names and faces. So she asks for the crowd's trust to stand with a new, transparent truth. And before the last drumbeat fades, she unveils not a miracle cure, but a plan. A legal restoration fund, a council of vendors who will oversee the deed and the market's reuse, and a process that makes the old town record sing again in the light of day, while Nana Mensah's shadow slips a notch and the city's ears open to listen. So Amma's heart, still full of the effect of the red thread and the bottle's gnawing memory, feels a kind of quiet relief even as the air tightens with the fragility of what comes next, because the interval's twist has not erased the sting of past losses, but has turned it into an instrument, something that can be used to call the truth forward and keep the market from becoming a trophy, a place where each vendor's small heat of hunger can be warmed by a larger shared flame of justice. Yet as Adoma speaks, a hand in the crowd, a former schoolteacher named Kwesi, who once ran the old registry's drawers, clears his throat and asks with a simple, clean question that makes the crowd lean in, "What about the old papers? What about the stamp that made a deed real in the first place? How long will it take to verify, restore, and enforce?" And the room answers with that breath you hear when a broken thing begins to sing again. So the interval beat becomes a hinge. The market now has a practical guardian who wields money not to buy property but to guarantee people's right to work and live on it, and that guardian's presence pushes everyone to step forward with something to lose and something to gain. And Amma, standing with the red thread still tucked into her braids like a promise, feels the oil bottle's old power shifting toward protection rather than cure, and she wonders if the city will finally learn to tell truth from rumor at the pace of a heartbeat. The second act opens with a new timetable that bites at the edges of everyone's day. The officials announce a temporary stay on the disruptive development, a moratorium that buys the vendors time to assemble a proper plan, and the crowd erupts with a mixed chorus of relief and fear, relief that the road will not swallow the market in a single stroke, fear that the money may still pull strings behind closed doors, and into that chorus steps the hidden wealth in plain sight. Bright Path Foundation's staffer, a quiet, steady man named Kojo, who carries a tablet and a map of the market drawn from years of satellite stories and street-level notes. He eyes the stalls as if measuring a body's pulse and speaks with an economy of words that makes the room lean toward him, telling them that the fund will cover repairs, seed banks, and a small scholarship for the market, children to learn bookkeeping, not as a theft from the future, but as a shield around it. The time pressure is real. The old registry's integrity must be proved, the new plan must be drafted, and the first votes must be cast before a single permit is signed. So the crowd anchors itself in this moment with a shared intention, while the city's usual Danfo horns become a chorus of cautious optimism, and the rain-washed zinc roofs glitter with a hopeful spark. And Amma, who has learned to count her breaths as a kind of arithmetic, becomes the voice people lean on when the numbers feel heavy, saying in a clear, simple line, the kind a child could repeat, that the market's power is in its people, not in its owners, and that their voices deserve to be heard at every table where decisions are made. Midway through this sequence comes the turning point that makes the twist breathe on its own. A former enemy, Chief Yaw's memory of gifts and signatures, is not shelved but confronted. Auntie Fatima steps forward with the old registry book, a leather spine that still carries the scent of ink and wax, and beside her the town judge arrives with a small contingent of ethics officials, not in robes, but in practical shoes that carry them across the tar and dust with the seriousness of a field crew mapping a river. They lay the old deed next to a fresh copy and show, in a way that a camera can catch and a crowd can understand, that the older document bears stamps that match the registry's genuine patterns and that the newer envelope seal is plainly forged, a threadbare trick that even a hurried clerk could spot if he looked with honesty instead of greed. Nana Mensah's men squirm, their smiles flattening into the kind of expression you wear when a lie meets sunlight, and in the back row a younger man who had been a driver for the SUV mutters into his sleeve that the footage from the phones, the videos that show a hand slipping a known banker's envelope to Chief Yaw, may be enough to topple a myth but not enough to secure a future unless the court confirms the records and the community holds its ground. The turning point is not just the exposure of a fake deed, but the realization that wealth has a role to play not in overpowering truth but in reinforcing it, and the whisper among the market women about a foundation first becomes, in the light of these witnesses, a public declaration. Wealth can be a shield for the vulnerable when it is used to build, connect, and defend, not to erase dignity or barter away the common good. The interval's larger climax comes with a public ceremony that feels almost like a small revolution. Adoma steps to the microphone again, this time with Nana Mensah planted to one side, not as a conquering adversary but as a case study of what a fallen power looks like when the people's scrutiny lands on it. The crowd's live stream climbs toward tens of thousands of eyes, and Kojo's map becomes a living plan, a blueprint that shows where repairs will begin, where seed banks will grow, where the clinic will be rebuilt, and where a fresh cooperative market hall will rise around the trusted deed. And Amma, who has learned to read both the skin of a paper and the skin of a face under pressure, speaks with the same calm, direct cadence she used when she first handed Baba Kofi the oil bottle. "We do not hate the money. We demand the fairness that should have been here from the start." A hush settles like dust in the heat, and then the hush breaks into a chorus of voices that include the old and the young, a grandfather who once sold yams, a girl who learned accounting from her mother's ledgers, a trader who once believed that land was a thing to own and now understands that land is a living place where people smile, cry, save, and dream. The billionaire's public apology arrives not as a theatrical gesture, but as a real commitment. Bright Path Foundations pledges a long-term, transparent grant to maintain the market safety nets, to fund literacy and record-keeping for women and youth, and to supervise a rotating board that will answer to the vendors rather than to a single power. And Nana Mensah, facing the camera as the light tightens on his face, makes a confession that is not dramatic but undeniable. His chain of signatures, his slick deals, his need for fresh asphalt where old stones should remain, were a mistake born of fear. He will step away from controlling Makola's future and fund it under the new cooperative umbrella as a private donor who has learned that generosity without accountability is nothing but a loud echo in a room that needs real conversation. By the time night settles over Makola, a different rhythm has taken root. The market's pulse is slower but steadier, like a drum that has learned to count the steps of every dancer in the crowd. Baba Kofi, returned from the hospital, sits on the mango tree bench with Amma, their breath sinking as they share a piece of bread and discuss how small acts done with courage can change a city more surely than a single law. And Amma's palm touches the glass bottle's lid where the red thread lies coiled, a symbol now not of peril, but of promise. And the box above the gate, carved with care by Kojo, glints in lamplight as if to say, "This is a story you can touch and walk away with, a story that teaches you to count not only coins, but also the names that stitch a street together." Auntie Fatima, the registry's surprising ally, travels back and forth to keep the records honest, while Kojo's wooden toys and Musa's repaired shoes become a model of how craft and commerce can share the same roof without losing their soul, and Nai's little brave act of lifting the newer deed on a dusty afternoon becomes a legend of a child who learned that right can be louder than power when a city chooses to listen. The camera's glow follows Amma as she walks the lane between stalls, her tomatoes bright enough to remind every hungry heart that a plate of fruit can feed more than a stomach, and the lesson that kindness, when organized, can outlast the greed of a moment sits heavy on the air like the scent of roasted plantain mingling with diesel and rain in a market that now smells of possibility rather than fear. Yet the interval returns with a final, quiet question that travels through the crowd and into Amma's own mind. If wealth truly moves toward justice when watched, who will keep watching when the headlines move on? And what new thread will tie the next generation to this lamp if the lamp must be carried forward by people who still wake each morning with the same hunger and the same hope? In a slow, almost whispered epilogue, the box on the gate becomes a stand-in for a larger truth. The market is not a battlefield but a classroom, and the people, with their patience and persistence, are the teachers. Amma's life moves into a steady rhythm of leadership and teaching rather than peril and pursuit. She begins to host weekly classes on savings and small business planning for young women under a shade tree. And Baba Kofi, with the oil bottle now retired to the wooden box of memory, crafts wooden toys that sell at the stalls, each figure carrying a tiny red thread tied to its crown, like a crown for a dream. Auntie Fatima curates the registry with renewed care, ensuring that every future document bears the stamp of truth and is cross-checked by the new cooperative oversight, while Kojo's seed bank program starts to sprout in the same compound where the market's old stories were buried in fear. Nana Mensah's foundation funds a scholarship for the brightest students who want to study urban planning and social enterprise, a move that feels like the final reversal of a long night. The once feared billionaire steps down from the stage of intimidation and into the role of a quiet partner who can still open doors without forcing them, because wealth is now a tool for accountability as much as abundance, and the street, which once learned to survive on luck and rumor alone, now learns to live by shared rules and mutual care. The bottle's lamp glows softly in the new dusk, not as a beacon of danger but as a lamp of guidance, and the red thread is tied not to a secret but to a trust, a public trust that binds the market's future to the people who will keep watch, keep data, and keep hope alive as Makola Market, with its repaired stalls and its brighter, kinder air, grows into a living, breathing classroom where every child who counts money learns to count also the names of those who stood up to power, and where the last line of the chapter closes not with a question, but with a vow. We will tell this truth again and again, until the next interval beats in and the next twist arrives, not as fear, but as a new chance to prove that kindness, paired with courage and transparency, can bridge the widest gap between Danfo streets and glass towers, between hunger and dignity, between the shadow of a fake deed and the bright, stubborn heart of a market that refuses to die. If there is a question left in the air, it is only this: who will bear the lamp when Amma's turn comes again? And how will the next interval reveal the next guardian of Makola's living story? The answer begins now, in the hush that follows a crowd that learned to listen, and in the soft glow of the lamp that promises to guide them all toward a future where wealth serves the many, not the few, and where justice, once spoken aloud, becomes the daily bread of a street that finally knows its own name.